Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. On this episode, I'm excited to be joined by returning guest Cary Smith from Dundesk. And today we are focusing on the impact of efficiency in an orthodontic practice. Whether you are a single practice owner or an owner of multiple locations, accountability to efficient strategies is the key to success. Stay tuned for practical tips and actionable advice on enhancing efficiency and overall happiness in your practice. Let's get into it. Hey docs, when it comes to marketing, I keep hearing that you're frustrated and that you don't know what you're paying for or even if your marketing efforts are working. Are you wondering what your next marketing move should be? I would suggest you contact Mary Kay Miller and her team at Kaleidoscope. With their free digital marketing audit, you will get answers and solutions to your biggest marketing questions. Go to contactkl.com to request your free digital marketing audit today. When it comes to websites, SEO, and digital advertising, you don't know what you don't know till you know. Find out what you don't know today. That's contactkl.com. All right, Cary, I am so excited to have you on the show today. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know many of our listeners have heard you before on one of our earlier episodes, but in the event that somebody is tuning in today and has not had an opportunity to know about you or about Dundesk, would you mind just giving us a quick little synopsis of who you are and what Dundesk is all about?
Sure. Yeah. It's to make it easy on everybody. It's basically, I help doctors avoid risk and achieve success. That's the gist of what we do. That's why we wake up every day. And then how we do it happens through various methods and methodologies. And one of those ways we help achieve success and avoid failure or risk is through our software platform, Dundesk, which was specifically built based on my experiences working with approximately over 1,000 dental offices in orthodontics. It's tailored, it's like specifically arranged around this experience of the owner in the dental setting.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. That's great. So I want to just jump right in and I want to talk a little bit about the ownership experience and how depending upon efficiency, it can either be a reward or it can be a little bit of suffering when it comes to that. So what do you think is one key strategy that makes all the difference for our doctors?
Yeah. So I think when we talked about this episode before we got on, this is like several weeks ago, I brought forth this idea that intended outcomes lead to practice satisfaction, like things are working as intended. And then when things don't work as intended, that's sometimes, almost all the time, my clients, that's when they call me because something's broken, right? And so when you start to see this pattern emerge from the things that are breaking, you end up starting to say, okay, what's the root cause of this? Why do we have this? And then generally speaking, my doctors, well, all my doctors are super nice people because they have to be for the most part. They can't be a mean doctor. But it's in their nature to be caring and it's in their nature to be a people person, right? Because they have to be, that's part of their job. That's probably why they're in medicine or in dentistry to begin with, because it's this calls to their soul. But the satisfaction piece of it can go awry, right? You've seen firsthand the stories of when people call you because things are broken, right?
Yep.
Or there's legal issues, or there's a side of business and dentistry that they don't really highlight too well in chapter 6 of your clinical manual at school or in your residency, right? They just don't talk about this stuff. The place you see this is at the end of the road. So when we talk about this thing called efficiency and how that can lead to ownership satisfaction, it opens this door to this pretty cool conversation around like, how do we spend our time? And where are the priorities in our life and how that flows into the decision-making process of how we run our business. It also flows into the construction of the mechanics of everything we do in our practice as a way to purposefully influence the outcome, which then makes our lives lovely and allows us to, I was looking for the word there and lovely just popped in. It's an expected outcome. So you have this satisfaction of, okay, cool, I got it. And then the other piece of that is if things are done at work, then you don't take them home with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this work-life balance. I like to just call it life balance, right? You spend some time at work, but you also spend a lot of time at home.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't take work home with you. And when you do, that's because it's the survival instinct of things aren't done. There's this bear chasing you in the woods.
Yeah.
And you don't know where the bear's coming from. You don't know when it's going to arrive. You do know the bear's there.
Yeah. It's
So
that unrest. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like this, when we talk about satisfaction, that's really comes back to this conversation on, okay, how do we run our business? And is it efficient in one way to where we don't have to think about it when we go home?
Mm-hmm.
But also, is it organized in a way that yields this result we intend to get, which feeds back on ownership satisfaction? Yeah, we actually did that by design, not by accident.
Yeah, I cannot agree with you more. And I see this all the time. I've been in my 18 years of being a consultant and 30 plus in the industry. And probably one of the number one things that I see that lead to burnout in doctors is when they have a lot of unrest in their practice. They don't feel like they've got control over anything. And it's almost like they're a slave to the business instead of the business being a way for them to, a means to a happier, more enjoyable life. And I think you're so right. A lot of times it comes back to those systems. It reminds me of a book, and I'm sure you probably read it, 10X is easier than 2X. And a lot of what that book talks about is just really thinking about what things do you as a business owner need to be dealing with, and what things can you put on other people, your who's out there. And I think that's where Dundesk really comes in. And I think for a lot of docs is able to give them peace of mind that somebody else is handling some of these things that I'm taking home and wrestling with and stressing about. And it's always, I love that analogy of the bear. What's there, what's coming, you just don't know around which corner it's going to be at.
Yeah, it's so I'll just walk you down this kind of track. For me, at some point in my career working in risk management with dentists, at some point, as a business owner myself, this thing's flipped in me. It's probably because of my age. That probably triggered it mostly. But it comes down to what if we woke up and said to ourselves, what do I want most out of life? What do I enjoy most out of life? And I'm going to make my business give me that. And it's not a money thing, right? It's just what if we did that as business owners? Then you'd say, okay, now there's a reason. Like when you go fishing, like when I go fishing, I don't know if you fish or not, but I wake up at 4 a.m. I'm like up and out. But if it's a work day, like you have to turn the lights on and feed me coffee. You know? That is this internal like motivation you can get around this business activity. So if that's the case, if this business is going to enable this life you want to live, then you're like, it's not a motivator on how many cases did I start? How many contracts did I do? It's a motivator of, are we, in everything we do, every single action, every single communication we have, is it aligned toward the result we want to get out of this business so I can go do the cool things? And I can get my people to get what they want out of this business as well. That's the thing with like 10X or these books I have here with how to do whatever. Like it's always, this is the leadership imperative, but it always forgets the people. And I'm like, what if you could bring your people to where they want to go too through your business? How much engagement would you get from them in every single interaction they do versus like what I experience when I'm trying to get healthcare, where you call and the first thing they say is, what's your insurance number, versus saying, are you in pain? It's like the people are disconnected from the goals of the practice. But because I think the practice is sometimes, well, almost wholly don't take the what's in it for me approach with the employees as a real strategy. So what if that's where I think you start versus like, why did you get upset about that? You start at the beginning. Is this thing working like you want it to, that you want it to because you have this higher purpose? So that's really the struggle. And I think in this conversation, I want to bring out like some strategy that will allow people, because right now, like in a vacuum, that all sounds badass, right? So this is great. But it's like, how do I stop the plane I'm flying to change the engines? If I need to do that. So I've got some strategies if we got some time.
Let's jump into that, because I do think that one of the things that Dundesk really helps us with is risk management. And that's not necessarily the sexy side of our business when we're thinking about that. We're out there wanting to straighten teeth and make great smiles on the orthodontic side of it. And so when we think about risk, we don't want to think about all of that, but it is the thing that we need to think about. And I'm wondering, because I've got docs that are new, single location docs. I've got docs that are listening that may have multiple locations. And as you said, you've got some strategies to talk about. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing with your over 1,000 practices that you've worked in. What are some of your most frequent, I don't know, observations or some of the differences maybe in how we handle a single location and maybe from a startup to a younger practice to maybe just a single location that's clicking along in their 8 to 15 year to somebody who's got multiple locations and we've got multiple team members that may or may not all think alike and may or may not do all the things the same. So what do you think there?
Wow.
I know. Unpack that one.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was in pre-med and I took organic chemistry, always whenever this question comes up, what are you seeing? I come back to my time in organic chemistry, and there was this concept. All of our listeners went through organic chemistry. They had to get into medical school. It comes down to this concept called limiting reagent. Right. So in any chemical reaction, there's always a component of the reaction that if you don't have it, the whole system shuts. Right. Mm-hmm. And so when I think about individual owners that own one, no matter where you are in your timeline as an individual practice owner or where you are in your timeline of building a multi-location practice, or maybe bringing in partners, or maybe you're joining a DSO or whatever it is, the limiting reagent in all those scenarios, there's two. And the one is time, which is no shocker. The other one is the people, right? Mm-hmm. So if you know those, if that's universal, and it is, there's probably something else I'm not thinking of, but those two, from my background and everything, I think those are the two that if you want to start to look at improving your business or getting more satisfaction out of your business or anything, those are the two components you have to go drag in. Now, a sole practitioner, I think those guys and gals are really good at being fast reactors because of this fact. Mm-hmm. They don't have enough time, usually. And the second one is they generally don't have a people strategy. So the people that they get are like the people that get to do the job for us today versus a real strategy around who do we like to the core. Yep. Attitudes, behaviors, skills, experiences, values. Yep. Who do we need in these positions? Mm-hmm. We just acquire people that are available. And generally speaking, as business owners, we're not real good about interviewing because we have an open position and it's impacting our revenue. So we hurry and we probably aren't patient and all that stuff. Yep. So the people strategy piece of it flows in. And so the time component is, are we spending our time on the things that are important? And then do we have a real people strategy around that? So sole proprietors or smaller practices, single location practices, don't have a strategy around any of those things. So they become fast reactors. They get really good about reacting. What happens is when you want to go into multi-location setups, generally speaking, the owners of the multi-location started with one and they just start to replicate this single practice mindset. And they end up in a scenario where they have 3 locations and it's owning them completely because they took the assumptions and strategies and all the things they needed that were successful in one location and they just multiplied complexities by 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. Now that's where Dundesk came from, that experience. And what's cool about Dundesk is that you need people to help you with these things. And so Dundesk shows the people what to do, right? Yeah. That's the strategy there. But as an owner, if you want to go to multi-locations, you have to have a multi-location mindset, which is a different strategy than owning a single practice. You have to lean on proactivity, more planning, and you have to this is going to sound really crude, but you have to rip out the engine on the plane people-wise before you decide to take off. Because the issue is that you may have acquired individuals that are loyal to the business. They trust you, you trust them, but you haven't developed them over the years. Mm-hmm. Like you have hourly waged employees running multi-million-dollar businesses. And so it ends up being is this person capable of bearing the load I need them to bear in that role so we achieve our goals? And so that puts a premium on developing your people now, giving them the experiences and skills they need and investing in them so they can grow within your business, which I think is cool because these jobs are ascensionless. There's
Yep.
really you don't acquire the skills to be a doctor. Yep. You have to go to school to do that.
Yep.
So that's where this mindset I started thinking about that. And so why don't sole proprietors do that now as a strategy? Like, shift the strategy to your people to develop them so they can take on more, get more fulfillment out of their jobs, help you, give you more time. So therefore, now you have more time. You can then start working on the engine while the plane's on the ground versus trying to do it while it's in the air. And it's this neat feedback loop where the time and the people both need strategies. And the more you put into the people, the more time you get so you can go to multi-locations.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's great. And I really like how you broke that down, because that is exactly it. And I think so many times I've seen this just like you, where sometimes I think we get in this habit of thinking that because an employee has been there or with us for a long time, they in turn should be rewarded with moving up the ladder in the practice. And sometimes what I see is that longevity does not necessarily play in to skill set and knowledge of where we're moving them. And it ultimately always comes back to us as the owners, us as the doctors, to make sure that we are giving these people the tools to, if they are the right person, to move into those roles. And I think sometimes we just forget that we spent all this time in school, we did all these things to get us to where we are, but our team member has just been working the business. And yes, they are learning to a point, but it doesn't mean that just by osmosis, they're going to know all of the things that they need to know. And I do appreciate that that has been something that I have seen that Dundesk has really been able to do for us, is open up that door of education for the team members in a way that's easily consumable.
So it's okay to promote people that have tenure in your business, right? Because they know your business intimately, and they can probably be the best fast reactors for you, right? They may be able to see over the horizon faster than you can as a practitioner, because they've been there and they've seen the cycles. They know how you are as a leader. There's a bunch of advantages in that. But if the strategy calls for a change, that individual is in an echo chamber of the experiences within their practice.
Yes.
So they can't anticipate larger business concerns. And so this week I was in Dallas. I toured a new customer of ours. They have 7 locations. I've known them for about 10 years now, and they've grown. They started with 2, now they're 7. They called me and said, "Hey, can you come up and look at our practice?" I said, "Sure." And they all want to do well. The practices are clean. They're beautiful. The employees are engaged. Everybody's, "Hey, you're that dude from the video I watched in the software."
Yep.
And, but there was also this constant limited visibility that led to risk. And in their case, just to speak frankly, there were storerooms and things that where people were just piling stuff up because they just didn't have a mechanism for removing clutter out of the practice in the back rooms and black closets and on tops of cabinets, and not in the eyesight of the patient, but just as I start saying, here, across all your locations, there's this pretty awesome opportunity to like declutter to make the spaces more freely and also increase safety. And they were just like, we would have never seen that because we're always working at this one location. And so there's a whole bunch of strategies around how we can improve that. So the issue becomes, do we need external talent to give us visibility? And if you can't hire them, then you buy them, right? Like call Jill, right? So the example I can give, the last one I have, is with Brad Pearson. He's my friend. He's my orthodontist. I've known him a lot of years. You guys, he's a customer of yours. Shout out to Pearson Saunders Orthodontics in San Antonio.
Yep.
They went in and they said, "Hey, we hired Jill." And I was like, "Great, why?" And we had some deficiencies in our collections process. They didn't go into details, but I just told Brad, I said, "Okay, so now that they're going to fix that for you, or at least help you with some strategies, what happens next?" And he's, "I think I'm going to have to stay on them." And I was like, "This is the issue. If you drive the focus of the numbers, that's good. But remember, that's going to come at the cost of not doing something else. So you need to teach someone to watch those numbers for you. But more importantly, you need to teach someone to hold the people accountable behaviorally every single interaction. So there's not this thing called deficiencies in your accounts receivables, right? You shouldn't have, it's always going to be there, but That's where the time sink comes, is we want this goal, but that we know we need to be successful and satisfied in our business, but we don't have the time to manage the iterative day-to-day behaviors that drive that number. So it gets out of hand. And so sole proprietors generally, these are all generalizations just to as illustrate the point, are become fast reactors, right? They'll worry about collections this week, and next week they'll worry about new starts, and next week they'll worry about supplies. And it's just like the crisis du jour. So what my vision is, and your vision is, that's why we get along, is that the owners should shift and teach to the people and enable them so these systems and mechanisms run as part of the people's satisfaction in what they do in their jobs. And you should reward them for that. And you should recognize them for that. You should also teach them how to do these things, why it's important. And then that's the ascension. It's not the ascension in title, it's the ascension in impact of your practice.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about efficiency. You talked about it just a moment in some of your stories, but let's talk about what you're seeing in practices, and when you walk in and you're like, oh, wow, they've really got this dialed in, or not so much. I think I loved that you talking about the practice where sometimes I think we can't see what's in front of us. We're so used to what we're seeing, or we're so used to the system, that loop that we're in, that we can't see that we are inefficient because of the loop that we're in. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what you're seeing with efficiencies and what helps maybe to a multi-location. I know you touched on that a little bit, but also within a single location.
So the first thing is like understand what's important. If people don't have a clear definition of what is important, then we don't know what to work on. So everything becomes important. And then because everything's important, we start to lose some things around the edges. And then suddenly things become urgent. And it's like an unimportant thing, because it wasn't attended to correctly, became urgent. And now, like compliance, right? It's part of the life of being in practice, right? These are rules you have to live by. They're easy to implement. The problem is that people forget about them, and they don't develop the day-to-day iterative little tasks that we automate in Dundesk that allow you to keep track of that. So suddenly it just becomes urgent. And that blows your day up, right? Which impacts your efficiency, because you're spending time on something that doesn't impact what you wanted to accomplish the day. So the efficiency aspect is driven a lot in dentistry and in orthodontics, is driven a lot by our own inaction versus planned actions on how we spend our time. So I think back to the time discipline part of it, we talked about the people piece a little bit. The time piece is like really understand as a business what's important. And the important thing is I get to go fishing at 4 a.m. when I want. That's important. So it's okay. How do we make that happen?
Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at getsmilesuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence.
It's the night before. We prepare. So it's these sort of routines you look at in your practice and say, okay, where are we spending our time? That's the first thing. And say, what do we spend our time on? And then we say, there's a Eisenhower matrix. That's it from like the 40s. That's where 7 Habits of Highly Effective People came from. That's where this 10X concept came from. All of it came from. Spend your time on the most important things and urgent things first. Then you delegate the things that are important, or you schedule the things that are important but not urgent. And then things that are important and urgent that you don't want to spend time on, you give them to someone. But you got to teach them how to handle that. And then the last one is if it's not important, not urgent, you delete it. You don't do it. Now, this is where when I walk into a practice and I say, I'm here to see the doctor, if I'm unannounced, the ones that know what is important, they'll say, Cary's not important. Because what Cary's going to do, like when I go to Larry Doherty's office here in San Antonio, he's my friend. He's also my dentist. I walk in, he's, oh, dude, hey, come check that. And we start talking shop in the back room, and it wastes his time. That he should be, he chooses to waste the time with me, and I like wasting his time with me because
and the team is rolling their eyes going,
the teams are like, dude, we got stuff going on and you're in here. But the team loves me because I feed them lunch, whatever. But the issue becomes, in his case and in all owners' cases, you're on an island. So there's this temptation in that scenario to get some peer-to-peer help or conversation going. But I think the understanding the definition of what's important, and in practices with, let's say there's a practice I'm working with, they have 70 locations, right? The Yelp reviews are 1-star, 2-star for almost all their locations, right? They're in trouble. And the thing is they're focused, their leadership team at the time was focused on revenue and numbers, and they had lost the people. They lost the people top to bottom. It was easy to get money to build the practices and do the locations and marketing and branding and buy the supplies and all the equipment, and all that stuff, but they left the people behind. And that is where the inefficiency gets driven in. Now, the good groups, like they say, hey, we can't do any of this without these people. So we need these people to be awesome. And when you walk in, like the group I worked with in Dallas with 7 locations, Kayla, like she's just bright-eyed. What do I need to do? Here's the strategy. Let's go get it. Totally engaged. And so there's the strategy for their growth is it's 100% on the people.
Yeah.
And then it's what do the people work on every single day? What's important to their role? And so you institutionalize efficiency. And if it falls outside of anything that's important, then you just don't do it.
Yeah.
You delete it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to be so disciplined because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard at first. But then you get addicted to it and you're like, man, I left out of here at 5 o'clock and everything was done. Everything was clean. I didn't have to worry about anything. Out of here.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about accountability, because I think that kind of rolls right into it. When you think about efficiency, you can't be efficient without accountability. And those two things, I think, can war against each other sometimes, depending upon who we've got in the roles, systems we've got in place. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you could probably write a book on this because that's how you've made your living. Literally. Ability. There's this temptation to buy a software that has a bunch of numbers, right? To look at the numbers. And there's also lots of offers. Hey, we'll do a free practice analysis as a marketing way to get into your business and start making noise for you. And the numbers, it's funny because we think these numbers are important. And what's really important is the actions and behaviors and people connected to those numbers that tend to get overlooked. And the softwares that provide all these numbers have no clue as to how the people worked to get that number going. They just say, oh, your collections is 82% or whatever the number is. So you end up with this frustration that you're somehow missing this opportunity in your business that this number is telling you need to go chase. So from an accountability perspective, if you backed way up and you started with yourself as the owner and said, okay, I'm going to define what's important in my business. I'm going to define what I want out of this business, how I want to feel about it, where I want to go. I want to travel the world every quarter. Fine. Let's let this business do that for you. That's what's important. And then you go down to the accountability level and say, how do we get there? Not how do we get there in a general, we just have to sell more cases, do more treatments. It's not that. It's like, who on my team is going to help us get there? And you start to have a heart-to-heart with yourself and this individual, probably not with them in the room at the moment, because some of them you probably have problems with, some of them you love. They certainly don't want to hear how you feel about all of them together in a room.
Yep.
If you're comparing it, like Janet's the best here and all, you don't ever want to do that.
No.
Because I've been in that meeting and it sucks. I wasn't the guy doing it. I just was there and someone started comparing people in front of it. It was just not the right way to do it.
Yes,
logically, we know that.
Yes.
But it's happened. So from an accountability angle, it comes down to these individual actions that lead to this result you want. And it's an academic pain in the butt to stop and think through that.
Mm.
And then think through, is this individual the person that needs to move the ball forward in this job? And if the answer is yes, then fantastic. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You could have a 3-point scale. One is developing, like they in this item, like maybe it's answering phones. Let's say she's a level 1, right? Or he's a level 1, which means they're developing, they're learning how to do it.
Yep.
Then 2 is adequate enough, good enough, knows how to do it. And 3 would be someone who could teach it, right?
Yep.
Just 3 points, something easy like that. Not all this Myers-Briggs colors and animals and all this other stuff. And just assess your people on those things: values, attitudes, behaviors, skills, experiences. And then when you put them into those roles, at that point, then you're going to hedge that you have the right person in the role, they're engaged in the role. And then you say, this is how I'm going to hold you accountable for the work you do. And so they're clearly understanding, okay, this is how I'm measured. And then you feedback to them every time you talk to them.
Yeah.
Hey, you're doing great. You're 2s, 3s. It's like measuring pockets, right? You just sit there and every time that you interact, you measure the pockets and say, hey, is there a problem here or not? There's not. Great. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And the accountability piece starts with the leaders, and people hear that, but it's okay, what do I do with accountability? And that is really understand what you want to get out of your business, and then who are the people that do the work, and are they capable of taking you there?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And again, you broke that down really nicely. And it is and can be tough, I think, as a business owner, because a lot of times that isn't always the strength that I'm seeing my doctors have. Is they're really good at the clinical component of it. They don't really like the touchy-feely component.
Jill, here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part. You diagnose and offer treatment plans to people. It's the same thing with managing people.
Yes.
You diagnose and then you offer them a treatment plan.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
And that's what you're right, though. People get all weird about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not weird.
Yeah.
The weirdness comes when the employee doesn't want to do what you're asking them to do.
Yes.
That's uncomfortable. That's like a patient saying, I'm not going to take your professional recommendation and I'm going to do whatever. And I'm going to blame you for my dislike. There's like that conflict piece, which you have to get good at as business owner, but it shouldn't be awkward. And you should lean into that, because dang it, the 70% of your income is put into those people's pockets.
Yes.
100% of your income is generated by those people. So you better be good at that you better be able to handle that. Otherwise you're creating your own scenario. So anyway, I touched a nerve. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but I agree with you. And your reaction is right on, because it is a tough one. And I think especially my young docs, that's something you have to learn, and you just cannot shy away from it. And it always amazes me when I come into practices and see doctors who have team members that they need to deal with, and they just don't. And instead, it's the team member running the practice or the team member making the decisions. And the doctors, they're cowering away from that uncomfortable situation, which is really holding them back, and at times can be really detrimental to the growth and where the practice is going, and keeping the doctor from living the dreams that they wanted to live because of the team members. And that's a whole HR component, and we won't get into that too much on this show today. I'll leave it there. But
no, let's do it. It's a 4-hour podcast. Buckle up. But here's the thing. It's in these conversations, it's really quick and easy to say, oh, we have to deal with a problem employee.
Yep.
That happens. That's mostly because we're not good at recruiting the right people, and we don't do the right things managing them. So they end up being a problem. And it takes months and months to rectify that. But here's another scenario that happens. Your business changes and the people inside of it are not capable of moving with you.
Yes.
That is a leadership challenge as well. And when I talk about the business changes, let's say you have you want to partner with someone, you want to share some risk, you want to set up another location across town. Then now you're like, okay, wait a minute. Can the people who are in those leadership roles manage 2 locations? And then you have to have this conversation with them on, okay, here's where you're deficient. We need to improve. And what's interesting is, what I've seen is the people that you hire not generally, I'm going to say there are occasions where people that you hire don't have the right leadership in their lives as growing up to really understand that they need to take some self-ownership, and there's some time that needs to be spent on their own schedule to develop themselves. Right.
Yes.
And much like doctors have to take CE, employees need to take ownership of their own careers and go get this development. And I think that's where doctors can provide leadership to employees and say, hey, look, whether it's here or anywhere else, did you know that this practice is a business? You're working in a business school right now. You could learn everything that runs in here. And it's like this massive missed opportunity. Like all these employees don't have that perception that, wait a minute, I'm working in a business school.
Yep.
I could learn all of these things and maybe even go be a business owner myself. And that door is shut, I think, by the leadership, by not even having the ability to open the door to them and say, hey, let's teach you how supply management works. How about accounting? How about marketing? How about sales? What are all these legal things? How about compliance? If somebody would just pick up compliance, there's 9 areas of compliance every practice needs. That's a guaranteed raise.
Yeah.
Guaranteed, because this doesn't fall under the owner. The problem is A, ownership doesn't encourage that or have that value system in the practice. And B, the employees sometimes don't perceive that as an opportunity or even know it's a reality because of where they're coming from. And so then it's like, when you open that door to them, I did this in Dallas at a hygiene CE thing I did. And I told them that, and all their eyes got like really big. And afterwards, one of them comes up to me and goes, hey, I want to start my own business. And I go, just what do I need to know? I go back to your practice and say, I want to learn how this whole thing works.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can own your own business because that's where you work.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, that's great. And I think about what you just said, and you're exactly right. But most people don't see it that way. And I think even a lot of times our doctors don't see it that way either. It is, what was the word you used? I think sometimes we're in a tunnel. We're in our own little tunnel and we just can't see outside of that. I show up as an employee. I do my job. I check off the boxes of the things that I'm doing, and they don't see. And sometimes our doctors don't give the, I don't know, I love that, open up the door to the continuing ed that is and could be there if they wanted to step through it and go through it. So I love that. So let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to ask about efficiency, but in regard to technology and training. And I think this kind of goes right into what we were just talking about. And I feel like now, more than ever, I've been in this industry for 32 years now, and I can tell you the technology and the training, just in general, the two pieces of it are very different than when I first started and to where we're at now. And just the accessibility to training mirrored with technology is amazing to me. When I got into this industry, it was all about, truly, you were trained by a doctor and any information you got was passed down through the doctor. So really, a lot of what we learned was as good as what the doctor knew. And now we're in a totally different. And I'm wondering if you can talk about that, because I feel like that's one thing that I think you have done really well with the company is mirroring and bringing that, the training component in with technology and making it easily consumable for an employee if they want to take on that role and really move themselves to the next level.
This is, you can't, if you stack your risks as a practice owner, you stack your risks up and you said, what is the most imminent risk that I could potentially face in my practice today? What is it? What is it, Jill? You tell me.
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I think having some type of a situation where a doctor's going to get sued a patient. That's where I feel like risk to patient and then losing their business to being sued.
Yeah. Yeah. That's up there. It's not, it's, I'd say in the top 10, maybe.
You tell me, what do you think it is?
It's interesting to hear what people's thoughts are on that, because then you see where their attentions are placed, right? I mean, you ask doctors the same thing. Like, I had a room of 300 people and I asked them all, do you have enough time? And they said, no, I don't. Most of them said, I don't have enough time. And I said, do you get to do what you want to do in life? And most of them said, no, I don't. I said, why? And the majority of them, the employees, we had it segmented by employees and owners. The employees said, financial reasons. I don't get to do what I want, financial reasons. So I pulled that, and the results were coming in live over the screen as they were answering. And so I could talk to them right there. And I said, the imminent risk here is that your employees don't perceive that there's a longevity in your business. And when there's lack of longevity or engagement, then they're susceptible to going down the street for another dollar.
Yeah.
And whenever I say that, I always think about my grandpa. He always said, hey man, don't change working with one bunch of idiots to go work with another bunch of idiots. Pay attention to who you're working with. But it's those sorts of complaints I hear. It's like those are self-inflicted. Mm-hmm. And I think the number one risk is talent, right? That's the issue. So how do we connect our people to the work they do? And we're not trying to keep them forever. I met a lady who's worked at the same practice for 50 years. 50 years.
That's not happening anymore.
She was like 14. She's gone through 3 sets of doctors. I was like, yeah, are you like killing them, or what's happening with your? So no, she's been through 3 sets, and that doesn't happen. But in our practices, and you experience this as a consumer in the retail industry, right? There's people that work there and they become effective in their jobs, and the technology that you utilize should connect the people with what is effectiveness in their practice as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And you can't do that by word of mouth. You need to lean on a technology to be able to pull that information closer to the employee quicker. So that's a learning management practice, which Dundesk does. But then you also have to hold them accountable for the things they have to do, which are the tasking, all the iterative things that have to happen. That's the tasking component in Dundesk, right? But then the goal is to keep them as long as you can, and keep them as effective as long as possible with technology. There's a method to do that. But then what's cool is that losing people not as a punitive event, but just as another thing to have to go fix or do. So the pain of it is not there because you're using technology to transfer all the knowledge of what it means to be successful in the role. When the person leaves, you just plug another person in, which is easier said than done, of course, but you get another person, and then you leverage technology to do the work of bringing them up into your business again. And that discontinuity of people coming and going in the practice is really where the risk happens, where the malpractice lawsuits come from, where the phones don't get answered, yep, where the patients don't get an unexpected accident or something happens in their contract they don't get. It's just this discontinuity in talent. So the innovation really is to leverage a technology that can transfer that knowledge to the employee, hold them accountable for some self-learning, which they have to, mm-hmm, they should all be wanting to know how to be a better employee. And then that gives you time to continue working with your patients, but also gives you time to spend more quality time with your employees to bring them into the fold with you as a leader versus, okay, we're going to spend an hour and a half learning OSHA. OSHA hasn't changed since 2013. That shouldn't be a person-to-person training. That should just be a 20-minute training class.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff all the time. That time, if it's important to you, the time needs to be spent on high-quality things, and only technology can do that for you. You can't handhold someone 100% for the first 90 days. That's inefficient.
Yeah.
So you see how these all connect up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I cannot agree with you more in the sense that I'm always trying to really convey to my doctors that we want to be making a path to a career within our industry instead of just providing jobs. And I think when we just have jobs, employees are going to be job hopping. They're going to be using us to get to the next whatever it is, versus if we are pouring into them with training and pouring into them with making sure that they understand their importance within their role, I think that leads to career opportunities. And the more they know, I think just like you, docs, if you think about it, the more invested you are within your career as choosing to be an orthodontist, choosing to be a dentist. I feel like that's the same way with our employees. The more they get invested in, to trust them with knowledge that is going to take them places, the more invested they're going to be in your practice, and the less likely we're going to see these job hopping employees. Right now, the statistics show us that we're lucky if we can keep an employee 2 to 3 years. So if we have somebody that's been with us longer than 3 years, number one, docs, you're probably doing something right. But if you are looking, especially if you're a new doctor looking to do that, it's investing in this continuing ed component. It's investing in their training. And I love what Dundesk does in the sense that it's not just show up and take a course, watch the video. It's watch the video and now answer the questions. And did you really get what that training was about? And can you apply it?
The thing you said to 3 years, I'm thinking of Dee McCallicash here in San Antonio. She hired an employee when I first walked in on her on the front desk. eyes lit up like she knew who I was. And I was like, I don't even know who you are. And that's just who she was, the employee, right? And she was there for 3 years. And that's what triggered me to think about her. And she left. And she went to be a realtor in Colorado. And she's very successful in Colorado. But she got that business chops, the customer chops right there at the front desk in the ortho practice. And it's like that 3-year time frame. Is that accidental? Is it unplanned? Is it unexpected? Is it understood? Or is it something that you can influence? And I believe you can influence that. Now, you can't keep people forever. You're just not. It's just the nature of the work. But if you have systems in play to accommodate the discontinuity, it makes the talent process easier. And that's what multi-location practices eventually have to solve, because they get big and then they realize, wow, we're getting 1-star Yelp reviews across the board because our people are turning over. They don't know what to do, but we also can't manage them closely because they're so spread out.
Yeah.
And so there's this, that's a key thing that I think you can influence as a practice owner is, okay, turnover is going to be expected, but do I have a system in play that addresses that in my practice? And that's why we built this software, is because like in a click, you can give them everything they need day one.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Then that allows you to go do other things.
Yeah.
Which time's important.
Yep.
Right?
Freedom of time. That's it. As we wrap up, this has been super fun. And I always love talking with you. I want to make sure that if somebody is like, Cary's got some great things, I need to talk to him more. What's a way that somebody can get a hold of you and maybe get started with Dundesk?
Sure. Yeah. You skipped over the other question. I know we're at time, but I definitely want to cover this.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. So you had asked me, if you were to give my listeners a little exercise to help them improve their efficiency and overall happiness, what would you suggest they do?
Okay. Let me ask. I don't think I asked it, actually.
Oh, Jordan gave it to me in the.
Let me ask it, because Garrett can cut all this in. So sorry, I missed that. I'm scrolling through my questions here.
Yeah.
All right. So Cary, I'm curious, if you were to give my listeners a little exercise and help them, I don't know, improve their efficiency and overall happiness, what would you suggest they do?
Okay, I didn't want to miss this question because this one's awesome. And in my lecture I do on time management, I always ask, and I'm pulling up the picture right now on my phone. I should have had it preloaded. I always ask, how many unread emails do you have in your inbox? And this is 52,571. This isn't mine. This is someone else. Yeah. One lady in the lecture had 370,000 unread emails in her inbox,
goodness.
Right?
Wow.
So you had asked me to prep on this question, and here's my answer, right? The one thing, little exercise to help you improve efficiency and overall happiness, right? So like email, it's just this constant stream. And by now, being a business owner, you're probably now on lists and you're getting email. It's becoming inefficient, but it also is a primary way important people communicate with you, because you've mixed in licensing and contracts and lease agreements and all these other banking things and all that with this email. So here's what I would do. And I've done this, and it's crazy awesome.
All right. I got my pen ready because I need help.
Yeah. So the first thing is you're going to change make a new email address, and you're going to call it focused and then your first name at gmail.com, or focused and then whatever at gmail.com, right? New Gmail. Then you're going to log into that, and you're going to put an out of office message. If anybody emails that, it's going to say, this mailbox will be viewed at 8 a.m. every weekday, so please don't expect an immediate response. If you need to reach me urgently, you can text me, but you don't give them your text number, your phone number. If they know you and they have this email address and they know you, they will already have your cell phone number. So what you've done is you've created a highly focused email box that you now give your CPA, you give your attorney, you give only very important. You give it to Talbot's. You don't give it to Chicken Express. You don't give it to anybody.
That's great. That's great.
And then on your old email, the one with 57,000, whatever, 1,000 unread emails, you put an out of office message on that one as well. And the out of office message says, this email address will not be monitored as of today's date. If you are a real person with an important and urgent matter, you can email me at, and you put that focused email address at gmail.com, right?
Yes.
So if someone emails you like it is your attorney or the bank or whatever, and it's not an automated message that just clogs you up, they're going to go, oh no, wait, okay, I need to email this new person over here. So what you do is you don't connect the new email address to anything. You don't connect it to Facebook, LinkedIn, anything. Get your old mailbox off of your phone, right? And if you want, put your new email address on your phone. I would highly recommend not putting your new email address on your phone. Make email reviewing a go to a computer and sit down activity versus it having being in your pocket, because that way you can separate your mind from the work and your personal life a little easier, right?
Yes.
And then watch what happens. Just for 30 days, you're going to miss some email. It's not going to be important. Guaranteed. Guaranteed it's not going to be important. Because real humans will filter themselves up to the focused one, right? But you won't be put on a mailing list. And you'll probably get 6 emails in 30 days.
Yeah. Oh, what a great tip. And I can tell you, I'm going to definitely think about implementing that. I can't commit to it yet, but I'm going to think about it.
See, you're like me. So many of my clients have my stuff. Yep. So many of my clients, like they'll text me when versus going through the company line, they'll just come to me. Yep. And it's different, I think, for us. But like my email used to be 70 in the morning. I have to go through. I spent most of my life in the morning deleting things. Right. Then you become tired of deleting. So it just becomes an archive and it becomes unusable. And so that way you're not like having to check email every minute and like important things can come through. So that's just one of 10 things you can do to bring your time into focus on the most important things in your life that drive your business, that allow you to achieve success and avoid failure.
Yeah, that's great. What a great tip. I can definitely do that for my personal email. That one I can commit to, and I can clean that one up for sure. I always love us getting together and talking, and you are just such a wealth of knowledge, and I really appreciate you being on the show. So if somebody has been listening and they're like, oh my gosh, I've got to talk to Cary. I want to find out more about Dundesk. What's the best way that they can do that?
It's easy. Dundesk.com or Cary. Yeah.
Easy.
I'll give you my email address. Cary@dundesk.com is the easiest way generally. And of course, you have the website if you want to see there. We're super responsive. But the last podcast I did, several doctors did call me and they were like, we're surprised you gave us your cell phone number. If you want to hear my cell phone number, go listen to that other podcast and get to the end of it. I'm not giving it not because I don't want y'all to have it. It's just my people said, dude, we have a process that we can make sure everybody gets communicated with properly versus your cell phone number.
Do it through the email. I'm the same way. I appreciate it when people text me, but it's so much easier on our systems when it actually goes through the right process. And those processes are important. We've worked hard to put them in place. So if you remember from last time, I like to finish us up with a little speed round. Are you ready for some speed round questions?
Okay, I didn't prepare for this, so go ahead.
All right, I've changed them up even too. All right.
Oh yeah, that's okay. That's why. Okay, go ahead. These are going to be so.
It's easy. Right, go ahead. If you could start any business right now, what would it be?
A Dundesk software business. That would be
perfect.
Yeah.
What's the best investment you've ever made?
Oh, best investment I've ever made is it was in stopping what I was doing and self-studying my insurance license. And I started an insurance business and I recently sold it. And it was like, that all started because I just studied on my own. And that was the best investment I made, was just stopping and reading something.
Awesome. All right. How do you handle work-related stress?
How do I handle it? I address it immediately. If I feel that there's a stress coming because of this business, there's a reason. It's usually something I didn't do. Like I put off, or something I need to address now. And the only way to address stress is to jump on it straight away and then make that a priority for the moment. Otherwise, it's just going to own you.
Yes. Oh, I cannot agree with you more. And then what's one trend in our industry that you're excited about?
I am really excited about the loss and failure of mail order dentistry. I really appreciated that failure, because the fact is that mail order dentistry just separates the core of what makes it dentistry.
Yeah.
You can't outsource expertise like that. There are some technologies though that I am excited about that allow more access to care virtually versus going into practices. But I think that's helpful, like connecting doctors better to patients. I think that's an evolution of what's happened with this aligner company going out the door. But I think that's exciting. those are the two primary things. It's just better care for patients and easier ways of doing business for our doctors.
Yeah, great. And then our final one, what's the most valuable piece of advice you would give someone just getting started?
Oh, this is great. Oh gosh, this is perfect. I got this advice from my wife's grandfather, who was the president of the Texas Fruit Growers Association. And he said, the best thing you can put into your garden is your shadow. And that applies directly to this business experience that we have. And put your shadow in your business, the business part of it, not the clinical part. And if that will pay off, the more you're invested in that activity, the more your people will see you invested in that, the more, and you're growing your people, right? That's the farm analogy here. Spend your time like that. That's where you need to be. Don't know more about Baby Yoda than you do about your employees.
That's so true. Cary, again, thank you so much for being on Hey Docs. This was great. And I know everybody listening was like, that was worth my 45 minutes. So thank you again for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Bye.